Is there a cost to being a disciple of Jesus? By that I'm asking, is there anything I might have to give up in order to be a disciple of Jesus? Hello, I'm Jeremy Disselkamp, preacher for the East End Church of Christ in Toronto, Canada, and this is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Matthew on walking through the Bible.
I'm not ashamed to hold my Lord, nor to defend his cause. Maintain the honors of his word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Matthew chapter 8. We're going to be reading from verses 18 to 22. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry, just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Matthew chapter 8, beginning at verse 18. And when Jesus saw great multitudes about him, he gave a command to depart to the other side. Then a certain scribe came and said to him, Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. Then another of his disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. But Jesus said to him, Follow me, and let the dead bury their own dead. In yesterday's episode, we have Jesus healing Peter's mother-in-law of her fever, as well as healing a multitude of people who were diseased and possessed by demons. Now, coming to verse 18, it appears that this story took place immediately following the events of the verses 14 to 17. However, if you read Luke 9:57 to 62, the only other gospel record of today's reading, and then look at Matthew 1:29 to 31 and Luke 4:38 and 39, the other record of Peter's mother-in-law being healed, you'll find that these stories are actually separate in context. Is there a contradiction here? No, because neither Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John claim to be giving us a complete chronology of Jesus' ministry. Sometimes we can piece together the time frame, and sometimes the author makes it clear that certain events are connected. But let's not read the Gospels and think they're giving us a chronological history, for they're not. In fact, even the first three miracles seen thus far in this chapter did not occur back to back to back when you compare the records from the other Gospels. It's only when we fail to realize this that we open ourselves up to be led astray by the critics of the Bible who claim that it is full of contradictions. So coming to today's reading, Jesus is surrounded by multitudes of people, and so he gave a command to depart to the other side, where presumably there were fewer throngs of people, thus allowing Jesus to do more teaching. Now you might be asking, to the other side of what? Well, if we read down to verse 28 of this chapter, we find that when they reach the other side, they come to the country of the Gergesenes, which is on the east side of the Sea of Galilee. So we know that Jesus was commanding them to cross the Sea of Galilee. On the way to the boat, there came a scribe to him and told Jesus that he would follow him wherever he went. Now to us, if I was a great teacher and wanted people to follow me like Jesus did, then we would be excited that someone wanted to follow us. We might think that this showed great faith that this man wanted to follow Jesus. However, Jesus' response was, Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. The difference between us and Jesus is that Jesus can read the hearts of men and women, while we cannot. Verse 18 told us there were multitudes around, and with that being the case, Jesus would be regarded as a famous, important teacher. The scribes and Pharisees throughout the Gospels are portrayed as a people who loved the attention and the praise that men gave them. And what better way to achieve that than being associated with a popular teacher? He might have also thought with going around with Jesus would be some easy and luxurious life. Jesus told the man that he really didn't understand what he was signing up for, because Jesus didn't have riches to offer him, for he didn't even have a home where he could lay his head down. If he wanted to follow Jesus, he could, but would have had to understand what kind of life he would be living. Matthew doesn't give us this man's response. Then we have one of his disciples coming to Jesus and saying that he would come with him across the Sea of Galilee, because remember, that's where they were going, but he first had to bury his father. Now, we don't know if this disciple was one of the 12 or simply another disciple, but regardless, this type of request seems reasonable to us. But it wasn't to Jesus. He was ready to go at that moment, and so he told his disciple to follow him and let the dead bury their dead. This seems like an odd statement, for how can dead people bury other dead people? Jesus, however, was using the word dead in two different senses. The first dead refers to those who are physically alive but spiritually dead in sin, while the second dead refers to those who are physically dead. So what Jesus is telling this disciple, I'm teaching the things that will make you spiritually alive. So if you want to hear them, you've got to follow me now. Leave those who do not want to follow after me and my teachings behind, and let them deal with the dead. Now, having covered what is literally written on the page, why would Matthew record this for us? What is his purpose? To show us that there is a cost to being Jesus' disciple. At that time, if you wanted to be a follower of Jesus, you literally had to follow him in order to hear his words. That meant you had to give up some things. Today, if we want to be a follower of Jesus, we too might have to give up some things that would keep us from obeying the gospel, like friends, family, or even jobs. Christ commands that he comes first and everything else comes second. It's a hard lesson to learn, but one that we must learn in order to be a Christian. With that, our time is up for today. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so that you can study along with us daily as we walk through the Bible one verse at a time. If you missed an episode, simply visit one of the many platforms listed on the bottom of the screen, and you'll be able to find what you missed. In tomorrow's episode, the Lord willing, we will be continuing our study of the book of Matthew by examining Matthew chapter 8, verses 23 to 27, where Jesus calms the storm. We hope you'll join us for that discussion. So until then, goodbye for now, and have a great day.
I'm not ashamed to own my Lord, nor to